I had seen the news coverage of the Prop 8 demonstrations after the passage. It was such an amazing, inspiring thing that was happening on the street, so we had to get it out. And the news wasn't showing this stuff. This was not seen by people. And luckily we had a cameraman out there right on the front lines getting this stuff, otherwise no one would know it had happened.
This photograph, the Saigon execution, was actually credited with helping end the Vietnam War.
The controversy surrounding Proposition 8 here in California has had a strong influence on the national debate over gay marriage. Today, the director and producer of the documentary Annul Victory are here. They help document the historic push for civil rights for gays and lesbians behind the scenes as gays gained and then lost the right to marry here in California. And later, it was the photograph that helped end the Vietnam War. Susan Morgan Cooper, the director of the documentary An Unlikely Weapon, joins us. But up first, Cheryl O'Reilly, the director, and Bill Manuel, the producer of Annul Victory. Great to have you here today, Cheryl.
Thanks, Greg.
Bill. So you told me you two didn't really set out to do a documentary about Proposition 8. It just sort of happened.
Yeah, we gathered, we decided that we had all this footage, this great footage that we had taken as the gay media of all the events pre-Prop 8 and post-Prop 8. And we actually had gotten one of the litigants, the original litigants, Robin Tyler, to give us a personal interview in her home. It's that Prop 8 is, the more we learned about it, was just such a travesty of justice to give people rights and take them away. And we had all this footage, and it was very gripping in the protest, and it was just, you know, to me it's a real testament, you know, to get this type of work out there and let people know what's going on.
Now, when you said you had all this footage, your company, Real Gay TV,
That's us.
Okay. And you cover red carpet events and that sort of thing?
Yeah, for 15 years we've been covering items of interest to gay and lesbians all over the world, and we put out a monthly newsreel each month. So we shoot stuff and put it out pretty quickly. Don't really have much time to script things, and we really don't have a lot of time to do much checking. It's got to get out pretty quickly.
Is it for like clubs or that sort of thing?
Generally we go to about 500 clubs across the country, but our stuff plays all over the world. We have stuff in bars all over the world, actually. But we had been shooting stuff up until the election and after the election, but I hadn't seen it. I had seen the news coverage of the Prop 8 demonstrations after the passage, and what I saw on our tapes was something I hadn't seen on the news at all. I mean, people in LA took to the streets. Young people were out stopping traffic, and the people of LA in their cars were interacting with them in a positive way. There was a rally where they were hanging over freeway overpasses, and truckers were honking as they came by. It was such an amazing, inspiring thing that was happening on the street, so we had to get it out. I was watching news coverage, and I didn't see any of this stuff. I mean, the news wasn't showing this stuff. This was not seen by people. People didn't know this was happening. So
I think you had mentioned, maybe Cheryl, that like they had the helicopter shot, but they didn't have, but you had stuff from down there on the street.
We had cameramen on the streets in the faces of police. I mean, things happened on the streets that people don't know happened. The police were there in force, in billy club and riot gear, and attempted to stop the crowds from going where they wanted to go on more than one occasion. And the gay and lesbians on the streets, mostly young people, went right up to the edge of those billy clubs and stood firm and demanded to go through, and eventually won their way through all the way down the street to Hollywood and Highland, where they shut down Hollywood and Highland on a Saturday night. It's an amazing thing. If you're not from LA, you don't get it, but it's an amazing thing that a group of kids, 10,000 kids, on a Saturday night, it's mostly kids, shut down Hollywood and Highland when the police did not want that to happen and tried numerous times to stop it. And luckily we had a cameraman out there right on the front lines getting this stuff, otherwise no one would know it had happened. I mean,
but yet there wasn't, I mean, there weren't confrontations.
Well, there were, it was remarkably peaceful, and that's a testament to Mayor Villaraigosa, I think, who I think from the beginning set down the tone that we were not going to make this a violent confrontation, even though they wanted these people to go home. They wanted these people to stop. They marched them around in a circle, about a 2 square mile circle, and wanted them to go home, and they didn't go home. They kept going. I think they hung out in Hollywood and Highland till 2, 3 in the morning. And the police wanted it all to be done by 9 o'clock at night. Okay, everybody, you had your time, go home, and it didn't happen that way. And no one would know it unless we decided.
And were a lot of people arrested then, or not?
I don't think any arrests happened then. There were some arrests that happened in the several days right after the election. There were marches at the Mormon Temple in Los Angeles. And some of that got a little violent, but nothing major, one or two arrests. I mean, for the most part, it was a remarkably peaceful event with lots and lots of people, 10, 20,000 people.
And at what point did you realize you had enough footage for the documentary?
You know, we just decided to edit through the three events. There were three main events, and we decided we got to show those events. And over the course of the years, we've been doing this for 15 years, we had a lot of the events that told the story leading up. And we had cameras at the rally on the day that the Supreme Court decided that gays and lesbians could marry. And we had cameras in 2000 at the March in Washington, where the issue of gays in the military was pretty serious and was being protested. There were 10,000 couples that were married on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and we had cameras there. So, I mean, we went back and we had footage that told this story throughout, from start to finish.
So you really had crews around the country doing stuff, and in San
Well, it was
Francisco, I think, as well?
pretty much just us that was around the country.
Oh.
I mean, we get around Globetrot and cover, and we have a great staff. We have about 10, 15 people, and so we get out and cover stuff that's of interest to the gay and lesbian community. We've been doing it for 15 years.
And I noticed you had some of the speeches from Mayor Newsom in San Francisco.
You know, the funny thing is, Mayor Newsom was the focal point of the campaign, of the Yes on 8 campaign. They used his words to win that initiative, and we went back and requested a copy of the speech from the city of San Francisco. And if you play the speech in its entirety, it's quite an amazing, inspiring thing that he said, but the Yes on 8 people took a couple of key phrases and used that over and over to drum into people's head, this scare tactic.
Was it the part about?
It's going to happen, there's nothing you can do about it, or, you know, this kind of stuff. And I don't know why they didn't enlist Mayor Newsom to come out and say the entire sentence, you know, say what he had said. Get the tapes and play what the speech was. The speech was an amazing moment on the steps at City Hall in San Francisco with thousands of people in the rotunda. And it was a joyous moment when he gave that speech. It was an unbelievably joyous moment, and they used that to turn it around and win the election.
Was it then or later that he used the phrase about, you know, as California
It was
goes,
then.
so goes
Yeah, it was then.
Was that one
And
of the
boy,
phrases
that
used
turned out to
more?
be prophetic, because, you know, the people for Yes on 8 think they won a victory here, and that's the name of our documentary. Annul Victory, meaning a null victory, a zero victory, because they didn't win anything. What happened was a national movement for full equal rights for gays and lesbians, not just to get married in California, but for rights across the board. And as soon as that election happened here, Vermont, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Iowa, it's happening in Maine, it may happen in New York. I mean, Mayor Newsom was right. What happens as California goes, so goes the nation. He was absolutely right.
But you were really approaching this more as filmmakers, not as activists, per se, that when you set out to do this?
Originally, yes. It's hard not to get involved in the movement when you see all the details.
And
everything
did you
that's going
shoot
on.
additional footage then, you know, specifically for the documentary, or was it all just the stuff in the field that you?
The interview,
We interviewed Robin Tyler and Diane Olson, but
They were
again,
the original
original
couple.
litigants
Yeah.
who won the case, won the rights to marry. But again, we never, when that interview took place, we really hadn't planned to do a documentary and really didn't know, I don't think we really knew what we had in the can. We hadn't seen the amazing stuff that happened on the streets. So it all came together. The project almost drove itself. I mean,
yeah, it took on a life of its own.
And what kind of reaction have you had so far now that you've been getting it out there? Because you're sending it off, what, to film festivals,
Yeah, we've been in 4 film festivals
4
now.
film festivals, and I think one you said was in Florida?
Yeah, it was the first one. As soon as we got it done, it was amazing. As a
Now, I love
filmmaker, I'm going
Florida,
that.
I must say, I have a lot of relatives in Florida. I've been going to Florida my whole life, and I've lived in Florida a short time. But there is a mentality in Florida.
well,
I'm just curious to
we have
hear
two
what
stories to
your,
tell about Florida. One, I mean, Cheryl attended the festival, and a woman came up to her, and I'll let Cheryl
Yeah,
tell that
it
story.
was really funny because, you know, being a filmmaker and really enjoying my project and really trying to have other people see it and participate in it. After the screening, I was talking to everyone in the audience because people wanted to talk. It was crazy. They all were just stimulated by it, and so they became activists in their own rights as soon as they were out. It was so. Eventually, we were trying to put together a panel to discuss things because it was so heated afterwards, and especially
Because
with Florida and
Florida
everything that was
has-
going on down there. They had a real interest in what happened here, and they didn't know. And as a lot of people don't know, they just know it passed, and it didn't happen, and so.
Because
they're
Florida
not-
has banned gay marriage?
Right.
Well, Florida had another issue on their election at the same time we had the marriage issue. They had an adoption issue that failed as well. So they felt the sting of anti-gay sentiment at election day there as well. But there was a 58-year-old straight woman who came up to Cheryl after the film, and she was she wrote us a letter that was quite impressive. And she told you what, Cheryl? She was.
Well, basically, she said that said she wanted to preface that she was a 63-year-old
63.
63-year-old straight woman, Jewish woman. She said Jewish woman from New York, and she prefaced all that before she talked to me. And she said that she was on the phone immediately after she watched the screening because she said that so many of her friends said nothing was being done about this issue, and she said through your film and the visions and all the protesters and how powerful the images were, that she was on the phone immediately talking about it. And she said that, well, someone is doing something about this. Someone is showing this in all the festivals.
She wrote me a letter that said this film ought to be seen in schools across the country, that straight people need to see this. She was unaware that this was going on, and this is really, the music in the film is pretty eclectic. It's like 6 or 7 music videos sort of put together. She was impressed by the music. She was just completely stunned. I mean, it wasn't the audience we had thought would be bowled over by it.
So has most of the response been positive?
Yes,
totally.
it's been very positive. Now, another story I have to tell, in Fort Lauderdale, we get around the world and cover events, as I was telling you. We were covering Fort Lauderdale Pride, and one of the booths at Fort Lauderdale Pride were 2 old Florida women who are running a network on the Yes on 8 in California battle. This is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and they were running a newsletter and a blog for people in Florida interested on how Prop 8 was faring in California. So we hooked up with them, and they were thrilled to know that we existed and the film existed. And so there is interest across the country on this. And like Newsom said, as California goes, so goes the nation. And as our film says, this isn't about just getting married in California. This is about winning full rights, equal rights for gays and lesbians across the board, which should happen. It's far too long that we've been second-class citizens, and it's time. It's really time that it should happen.
Well, it was interesting right after the vote in California. You tend to think that no matter what your stance on, you tend to think of California as being one of the more liberal states. I mean,
Right.
This is
Yeah.
supposed to be the liberal state.
Right.
And it was interesting, though, that, right after California voted it down, then the East Coast, so many states legalized gay marriage.
States you wouldn't think.
Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah, it's a shocker.
Have you screened this in any Midwestern states?
We have screenings to come in
Pittsburgh.
Indiana, Pennsylvania. So it's coming. Annul Victory is coming.
And this is
To a
part
theater near you.
1, I know I should say.
Part 1, yes. This is an ongoing battle. We tend to follow this, and we would have anyway. This is what we do, is document, gay and lesbian life. But we tend to follow this right through till President Obama is signing the civil rights legislation in the Oval Office, and we hope to be there with cameras in that office when that happens.
We'll be right back with the director and producer of Annul Victory.
Equal rights! Equal rights! If you love someone, you should be able to marry whoever you want.
We want to be a strong society. We got to include everybody.
It's a civil rights issue. It's very upsetting.
It's inevitable.
We want our civil rights.
This door's wide open now.
We want Washington to stop playing around with us.
It's gonna happen, whether you like it or not.
And we are back with Cheryl Riley and Bill Manuel, the producer and director of Annul Victory, about the battle over Proposition 8 here in California. So you mentioned Obama before the break. How do you think he's doing?
Well, he's got a lot on his plate. That's what everybody says. I'm credentialed with the White House, so I get releases from the White House. I've been invited to the White House to attend several occasions that are designed to appease the gay media and the gay community.
He's been taking some flack.
A little flack, and he's taking steps to, like I said, appease us. I mean, they invited gay and lesbian couples to the Easter egg roll at the White House, which is a big step, I suppose, in the scheme of things. He did just give a posthumous Medal of Freedom to Harvey Milk and invited gay and lesbian leaders to attend the ceremony in the East Room. So, I mean, he is reaching out. He hasn't backed away from what he promised during his campaign, that gays and lesbians are entitled to equal rights. And so we intend to hold him to that if we can, and document that when it happens.
Do you think he's doing enough?
I don't think he's doing enough, but who knows what kinds of pressure he's under. I mean, if you look at this healthcare debate, you know, you'd think that would go very smoothly, and it hasn't. I don't think if he, for instance, took a proactive role in turning back the don't ask, don't tell policy in the military, that would go any smoother. I don't think he can just step in and introduce legislation into the Congress for equal rights. This is really where the sequel to our documentary is going. I don't think we have 50 votes in the House of Representatives for equal rights for gays and lesbians, which is astonishing. I think he knows the way to go about it, and I think he's being very careful and wants to go about it in a way that it will work and it will stick. And let's hope that that's the case. I mean, given his background, you've got to believe that he believes in equal rights for gays and lesbians. He professed it during his campaign. He hasn't done anything really that is blatantly against it. He's just not moving fast enough, I think, is what most people are thinking.
You know, initially he didn't really say he supported gay marriage, or I think he kind of said he didn't support gay marriage.
Yeah, he didn't.
He's kind of waffled away from, I don't know, he's a little bit vague on his...
Well, he was vague on that, but so was everybody else. There wasn't one candidate in support of gay marriage except perhaps one of the Republicans, right? Was Ron Paul in favor of that? It's not a popular position, especially for a candidate running for office. In addition to that, he really wasn't very vocal in the campaign here for Prop 8. Had he been more vocal, that may have gone down to defeat, and we might have had gay marriage today in California. But nevertheless, I think he's got a bigger constituency to appeal to, and this is not an issue that you're just going to ram down Americans' throats. This has got to happen with consensus, and it is happening with consensus. I think Obama knows that this is a matter of time, and young people are for this issue. Young people do not believe in discrimination against gays and lesbians, and I think he knows it's going to happen. I think he's going to make it happen in the first 4 years in office, but we'll see. We hope he will. There's a march in Washington to help pressure him to keep to his word.
That's in October?
In October.
And I think the thing is, some people want an overnight change, but a lot of times if you look historically, whether it was for blacks or women or whatever the struggle may be, generally these things happen incrementally over time, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't, especially not if it's peaceful. I mean, if there are demonstrations and dozens of people are getting killed, perhaps it would happen quicker, but nobody wants that either. So we're here to keep the spotlight on the issue, and hopefully President Obama will come through. And we have a better shot with him than any other president in our time. Even President Clinton backed away right away once he ran into trouble.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell, and so.
Which I think will rank up there with probably separate but equal one day.
You know, and President Clinton signed into law DOMA, which is the Defense of Marriage Act. So he started out by backing away, and he stayed true to being anti-gay and lesbian right to the end of his presidency, although I thought he was a great president. But these are not easy issues. And again, you just don't ram this down people's throat.
Well, when we were talking beforehand, I thought it was interesting. You mentioned the red carpet events or events that you've been covering over the years, and you had some thoughts on Hollywood.
Well, there are, by the way, in our film Annul Victory, there are a lot of celebrities who make a stand on gay and lesbian rights, and this is over the years. This isn't just during the campaign season. Over the 15 years we've been doing this, we put our neck out on the line and asked celebrities questions involving gay and lesbian issues. And so there are a lot of celebrities in Hollywood who are very welcome and willing to go on record saying they supported gays and lesbians. That's really how we established our niche in the business. Back in the day, we started in '94. If you showed up to a movie premiere, there'd be 15 crews, and this really is back in the day, because you go to a movie premiere now, there's 40 crews out there on the line, but there used to be 15 crews, and it was first come, first served, so we'd show up there 2 hours early and have the first spot in line and get to talk to everybody. But there'd be 14 other crews that want to talk to everybody, so it was tough. But there were a lot of AIDS fundraisers and charities that Hollywood was very supportive of. And at those events, the same celebrities would be at those events, but there'd be 2 or 3 crews. And so we'd get to talk to the celebrities a lot longer. And that's really how we decided, well, we got to do something with all this stuff. We're getting all this great stuff. We got to do something with it. We decided to put out a newsreel to the clubs, and we built our network of clubs so that, is our network today.
But aside from the strategic side of it, though,
Yes, well.
Even though America tends to think of Hollywood as being a bunch of wild liberals, and indeed, as you said, they are supportive on the issue, but yet you felt though that there was still maybe homophobia or a double standard in some ways about.
Even today, even in 2009, with all that's happened, I mean, we started in '94. The Ellen Show, I think, came out of the closet in '97. Well, in '95, '96, we'd be on the red carpet asking for an ID for our show. Would you say, hey, you're watching Real Gay TV? The other crews around us would gasp. Oh, it's like, oh my goodness, the word would cause shudders. And there were a lot of celebrities, I won't name names, but we have the tape, that you ask them to say Real Gay and they giggle. I mean, the word made them giggle. They wouldn't know how to handle it. And, they don't understand. These are actors. They don't understand. The tape is rolling. I mean, you want to look like a fool or you want to just say the word? I mean, I never understood it. But even today, in 2009, it's still a very closeted town.
Yeah, officially, nobody is gay.
Nobody's gay in Hollywood. None of the makeup artists or the costume designers or the writers. None of them.
Their character may be, the show may be, the story.
And the thing is, there's always, what I found funny growing up gay is there were always gay characters on shows. I mean, if you think back to all the shows that, as you're growing up, I mean, gay didn't exist, but there was always a Paul Lynde or a Charles Nelson Riley, or go down the list. There was always a gay character or gay storylines, gay comedy, and the same gay jokes keep getting recycled year after year after year.
Well, that's one thing that's always fascinating. When you go to the movies or watch a TV show, there's always some kind of a gay plot line or subtext or something, or jokes or innuendo. I mean, if you're really paying attention to what's out there. But yet, there's still this idea, that it'll hurt your career, it'll kill you. Like I say, nobody's gay, or that very few people.
What can you say about that? Is it hurting your career?
Well, don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell.
But you did say, though, that there are other parts coming up to this. You have a part 2 and a part 3 planned?
Yeah, there was a march in Fresno, and at that march, Cleve Jones is this fantastic activist. He was Harvey Milk's roommate and confidant during the heyday in the 70s. And by the way, how little progress we've made, if anyone who saw the movie Milk, from the 70s to 2009, 30 years later, and we really made no more progress at all. But Cleve Jones wanted everyone to focus on the Congress, the 437 odd votes in the Congress who will decide whether legislation gets passed. And that's where the battle's moving. And so the march in October is going to be interesting, but we need to go and figure out what the votes are. How many votes are for the concept of equal rights for gays and lesbians in the Congress? In the Senate, I doubt there are 10 votes. In the Congress, there might be 50, but that's nowhere near the amount needed to pass legislation. So we've got a big task ahead of us.
Well, even though there's been a huge national debate about this, really in probably every news show that you can think of, but you still said you had some people who asked you to pull the footage from the documentary? Or was that for a previous project?
That was a previous project in the Midwest, yeah.
So what happened with that?
I started to do a documentary in the Midwest on somewhat of the same subject matter. It wasn't on gay marriage, but it was on gay couples, and that had been together over 20 years or more, and had children, and a couple of the gentlemen in it have been together for over 50 years. And so I started this, I had this idea a long time ago of doing something, especially there. And, after we got everything done, I started editing, they started contacting me and said they were scared of their jobs, scared they might lose their children. And they're serious, it's very serious.
When was this?
6 years ago. So not
so
that long.
So even though you had the release forms and everything, you actually pulled.
And I would not have done anything, to jeopardize that for them. So even though I had the release forms, I did not use them because I understand that fear. It's very strong.
We had an event just this week. I mean, we have crews out covering entertainment stuff in LA regularly, and we were at an event for the season 2 premiere of Sons of Anarchy. And a publicist for one of the stars of that film wouldn't allow him to do an ID for our show because it had the word gay in it. She pulled him away in a huff, like she was, just disgusted by the concept that there's a gay show out there, and she just didn't want her star to have anything to do with it, even though the star was more than willing to do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't name names there either, but it goes on every day. It's a constant battle.
Well, I was thinking of something I read in the, I don't know, like People or something not that long ago, talking about a movie star who said he had a lot of gay friends, and I think actually his brother is gay, and he had a lot of gay friends, but he was concerned about going out to gay clubs because he didn't want to be photographed and then have it come out.
Right. It's a tough town.
And then there are the movie stars that are gay and married, but that's a subject for another show.
Hey, I'll come back with video for that show.
We'll start on that.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Cheryl,
Yeah, thank you.
Riley.
Great, thank you very
Bill,
much.
Manuel, good luck with the project. We'll be out there on the film festival circuit.
Yeah, it's in a theater near you.
Theater to you.
Up next, Susan Morgan Cooper with the photograph that helped end the Vietnam War. We'll be right back.
Pictures are very important because people believe photographs. And the picture can be a lie. But that person, like we will look at that and it's real. It becomes real. It becomes a real thing. You know, they say the written word, bullshit. The picture is what does it.
A guy walks in a black shirt and a pair of beat-to-hell jeans, wearing a scruffy black cap, and yet he's standing there talking to a king, and the king is comfortable.
And we are back. Joining me now is Susan Morgan Cooper. She's director of the documentary An Unlikely Weapon about the Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer Eddie Adam, whose photograph helped turn public opinion against the Vietnam War. Great to have you here today, Susan.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Well, they say the pen is mightier than the sword, but I think this photograph was even more powerful.
Absolutely. This photograph, the Saigon execution, was actually credited with helping end the Vietnam War.
And this photograph showed, it was actually the police chief
Of Saigon shooting a guerrilla point blank in the head.
He was actually one of their generals, I think, right?
Yes, he became a 5-star general.
And it was
after
interesting,
that.
in the documentary you show that there's actually video of that as well. But it was
There
really
is.
the photograph that stuck.
Well, it's very interesting because the video footage, is very gruesome to everyone. But I think
Because
when
you actually see the blood spurting out of the
yes,
head.
you see a big fountain of blood spouting up. But I think when you have a photograph, that 1/500th of a second, you're able to sit with it and that moment in time, It was actually the moment when the bullet was lodged in the brain. It hadn't come out the other side.
And it is one of those photographs, like the raising of the flag over Iwo Jima,
Yes.
that really has taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about that photo that...
I think it made...
Because it surprised him.
It did surprise him, but I think it made people across the world realize the stark brutality of war, what a heinous thing war is, You see this man being blown away right in front of your eyes,
Now, Eddie Adams said he was kind of traumatized, or you said he was traumatized by that photo, really, in some ways, for the rest of his life.
He was. It's very interesting because Eddie Adams won a Pulitzer with that photograph. He won fame overnight. And yet he was haunted by it because he felt as if he had vilified the police chief, who was in fact our ally. His life was more or less destroyed after that photograph.
In fact, I think his quote was, the photo destroyed 2 lives. Or,
Yes,
the
2
victim
lives,
and
the victim and the perpetrator's
because
lives
that really
were
wasn't his
destroyed.
intention.
No. In fact, if you watch the video footage, someone actually swipes Eddie's frame for a moment and then he, click, and it's that 1/500th of a second. He didn't even know he had that shot.
And he later apologized, I think, to the police chief?
To the police chief, yes. He befriended him, actually. I think he felt very, very guilty. And he befriended him over the years, went to visit him when he was sick in hospital. And the police chief was not allowed access into America for many, many years, but eventually...
You're the guy in the photograph.
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. But eventually he secured passage, and he ended up running a pizza parlor in Virginia, strangely enough. What a contrast, huh?
Yeah. Was he the one where they wrote was it his place that they wrote the...
Yes, the graphic words on the wall. We know who the F you are, yes.
And did he get death threats and that sort of thing?
Oh, many, yeah.
But yet Eddie himself, well, he covered the war, and I know he war is hell, was I think a direct quote from him.
Yes.
And he left the war and then returned. But was he against the war, or what was his own stand on the war?
I think, God forbid I should answer for Eddie, but I think that when he first went to the Vietnam War, he was a Marine himself, he was a dipped-in-it nationalist man fighting for America, and I think he believed absolutely in the war and what they were doing. But I think, as Tom Brokaw says in the movie, after a while, he, like everyone else, became very disillusioned.
Now, do you think these days that sort of photograph would have the same effect? Would it have more or less? Because these days, on the one hand, we're very much focused on video, but yet, well, what I kept thinking was it would be on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, would it be any different today? I mean, is something like that more or less powerful today?
I don't know. I think we're pretty immune to suffering these days, but photographers tell me that now, in Iraq and Afghanistan, the photographers are not allowed that all-access pass to get those up-close and personal photographs, and there aren't too many that I can think of that have.
Because he was right on the front lines.
Yes, he was like a grunt, he would crawl through the bushes ahead of the soldiers.
Ahead of the soldiers.
And I've had Vietnam vets at my screenings who've said they can remember seeing Eddie Adams caked in mud crawling out of the bushes,
And he said that the soldiers respected you when you did that because there was
Well,
a good
they
chance
did.
you could get shot.
Yeah, because he was risking his life as much as any of the grunts were, He was right there where the action was.
Now, he covered about 13 wars, I believe. And they said that he usually managed to find some kind of photo that...
Well, he would find that photograph that would, epitomize what was going on in that specific area. It's strange because he could have made a very lucrative living, photographing these great celebrities that he had access to and all of the American presidents. But he was always, pulled back into wars. It fascinated him, devastation.
So even after Vietnam, he's
still... Yeah.
Now, you mentioned presidents. I think he photographed 6 American presidents?
Yes, he did.
And he did, when he opened the studio in New York, he did later photograph quite a few celebrities.
Many, yes. There's some, for example, I love the way that he would shake it up with celebrities. There's a great photograph where he has Arnold Schwarzenegger, our Terminator, our governor, who you equate with machismo, and he's shot him in a pool with a little yellow ducky beside him. So he looks, very much like a kid. And on the contrary, President Reagan, he photographed not in the Oval Office, but in a white tank top pumping iron, so he liked to shake it up a bit.
Going against the type.
Yes, yeah.
And how did he feel about the celebrity aspect of it, photographing? I mean, did he think that was just fluff doing celebrities, or?
Well, I think that was why all the celebrities, kings of countries, political leaders of countries, top movie stars, was so relaxed around him because he literally didn't give a damn, He'd seen suffering and all over the world. He'd seen devastation. So for him to photograph a celebrity, it didn't matter to him who you were. He wasn't impressed.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I did want to mention you actually did meet him before he died.
I did. I was very, very fortunate. He had all the characteristics of a great fictional hero. He was gruff, courageous, very charismatic, wonderful guy.
Yeah, he had really, been there, done that as far as the wars, and he had that kind of an edge about him.
Yes, very edgy.
Was still able to relate with kings and presidents.
Yes, yes, very.
And you met one of his relatives who gave you the idea.
Yes, actually, it was his sister-in-law, Cindy Lou Atkins, who approached me to do the documentary. That's how I got to meet him.
And what are your plans for this? Is it
Well, right now it's in distribution. I've played in New York, Chicago, LA, and I'm going to San Francisco, Washington, and back to New York.
Well, thank you very much, Susan
Thank you
Cooper.
very
much
much.
success with the documentary.
Thank you so much.
And Unlikely Weapons about Pulitzer Prize winning photographer Eddie Adams. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.